these are my thoughts on wholesaling and how it's worked for me. So that being said, we'll get started here. And please stop me. Again, you guys know I'm Mike Cappello, wholesaler, investor. I'm also a licensed agent and owner of Sell Simply. Here's a little bit what we're going to talk about. So I know a lot of you guys are already successful in your own ways, and maybe some of this stuff pertains to you, maybe it doesn't. But for me, vision and mindset has been a huge part of my growth in this industry and my struggles in this industry from the very, very beginning. I come from my past before real estate, and even before that, like my last business was a real struggle. I struggle with mental health. I struggle with, alcoholism. I struggled with depression and anxiety and all the things that come with that. And so for me, there was a huge shift from that to where I am today. And a lot of that was about my mindset and my health and where I want to be and where I am. So I do want to touch on that because I do think it's important. I'll try to be somewhat brief there, but and then we're going to talk about identifying your market, some lead gen strategy. We'll go through some scripting. We'll talk about follow-up and lead tracking, how you guys and us can work together, and then Q&A section and my contact information. But please feel free to stop me. I'll try and keep my eye. I would just speak up because I've got my big screen in front of me and my small screen down here. So you have questions, just give me a holler and I'll stop. Don't be shy. So vision and mindset. And again, like I know a lot of you guys have been successful in your own right. So, but for me, it was like I had to take a hard look in the mirror and say, who am I? Who do I want to be? What is my vision? Where am I at mentally right now? And like really be real with myself and take a hard look in the mirror. And I'm very, trying to think of the word. I know who I am and I know who I was. And I knew at the time that the person that I was then was not going to be successful, not only in real estate, but in life if I continued the things that I was doing when I was in that place. So my thing to you guys is if you're in a place where you don't feel like you know where you're at, you feel lost, you feel confused about real estate, about life, like take a hard look at the mirror and figure out what it is you're going to do for yourself before you even worry about wholesaling. Frankly, like you got to address the person in the mirror first. Wholesaling is a very simple business when you nail it down, but it's not an easy business. It takes a lot of determination and grit and hustle and putting your fears aside and being vulnerable and asking questions and putting yourselves in uncomfortable situations that that are hard to deal with when you're starting out. All these things become easier the more you do them, the more repetition, the more reps you get. But if you're not prepared for that, it's okay. And like, you just really have to think about who do you want to be, think about that person. Think about the person you want to be. What does that person do? What are their habits? Even like, I'm kind of just reading here, but like, how does this person look? How do they dress? How do they show up? And you have to become that person. And I mean, I went through that whole journey myself. Like I was not happy with who I was, how I felt physically, my mental state. And until I like really took that hard look in the mirror and said like, this is not working, I need to change, and figured out who I wanted to become, like that's when things really started happening for me. So it's a little bit on mindset. It's something to think about. And frankly, the only reason why I wanted to bring it up, because I want to help people that are in that space, and you need somebody, whether that's me or a therapist or whatever, you need somebody. So my point in bringing that up is that if you're in that place mentally and you need somebody to talk to, or you want to talk to me about it, like, let's have a conversation outside of this. And I don't want to linger on that topic too much, but it is important. And I do want to be a resource for people in that situation, because I know what it feels like to feel lost and depressed and have terrible, crippling anxiety. So that was my real point. Beyond that, what's been really successful for me is becoming very intentional with my time and my day. I put my calendar up here. This is like 2 weeks out, so it's actually quite there. But setting up your day for success is a huge piece for me. And again, this kind of goes back to, like, if you're really starting out and you don't already have a W-2 and you're not, I get it. Like, a lot of you guys are already there probably, but for somebody that's just starting out, I think some of this stuff is important. So that's why I just kind of want to run through it. Having a plan for your day, having your lists when it comes to wholesaling, having your lists that you're going to call prepared for the next day, whether that's, for me, it's a pre-foreclosure list. Like, I know what I've called the day before. I know what I'm calling the next day. But like, going into the day with no plan and just sitting down and being like, who am I going to call today, is the wrong way to attack this. Like, you need to be very intentional with your day before it even starts. So either the next day, or for me, I do it in the morning, like while I'm having breakfast. Figure out your day. What do you have going on? What meetings do you have? What time are you going to spend in lead gen? I would encourage you guys with Mahmoud. Go ahead, man.
I didn't want to interrupt your
No,
train of
it's
thoughts,
fine.
but
I heard that, actually. So if you guys want to use that feature too, I actually do get an audible cue there.
nice.
Go ahead, man.
It's hard to see the calendar, but I see that you have like a very structured morning routine. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, that goes back to like a lot of the mental health stuff that I was struggling with. I encourage people to, for me, it's exercise. So yeah, I don't know, like, I have a giant screen here so I can read it perfectly, but if you guys are looking on a smaller screen, I guess maybe it would be tough. Yeah, for me, like from 5 a.m. pretty much until 9 a.m. is like my self-care time. I get up at 5 a.m. every day. I drive to the gym. I kind of like have my morning routine where I do my pre-workout, and my drive to the gym is probably 15 minutes. So I put on a podcast, or I've got a book, real estate related or otherwise. I got a book that I listen to every morning, 15 minutes to the gym. I'm at the gym from 6 to 7. I drive back. I actually go right now. I'm going to another gym because I go and sit in the sauna for like 15, 20 minutes and kind of like just do like breath work and sort of meditation stuff in the sauna for 15, 20 minutes. Then I get home, I shower, I have my breakfast, I review my calendar, but it's the same repeated every day, boring. I eat the same thing every day. I drink the same pre-workout, the same thing. I have like my water in the sauna. Like, before the day's even started, I've drank like probably 40 ounces of water. But all of that like sets my day up. Like, everything after that is just easy because I've done the hard workout, sat in a hot sauna for 20 minutes. I've had like plenty of water. I've had a good, like, healthy breakfast. I have the same thing every day: yogurt, fruit, granola, protein powder, like it's the exact same thing every day. And that translates into the rest of my day. Vanessa, go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. So my question to you is what did you do to stay consistent with your routine? Like I have created different versions of like routines and I know the power in a routine.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know the science behind it. You know, Rob talked about it in the great masterclass.
Yep.
And I probably I've experienced the power of a routine because I went to a boarding school in high school, and after many years after I left high school, I realized that it was actually the routine that I had was actually what made me successful in high school.
Yeah.
But then somewhere along the way, like I've kind of struggled with being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I have on my routine that okay, I have to be up by 5 a.m. But to be honest, it's not every day I'm at 5 a.m. Sometimes I'm up at 6. And then I kind of feel bad. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I spent an extra hour. So I don't know how to stay consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling. I've struggled with it myself. What I've stopped doing is negotiating with myself. Like I have made a very conscious decision that in order to be successful, these are the things that I have to do. And if I want to get where I want to go, I'm going to have to do the hard things. And I'm modeling this just after other people that I've seen that are very successful. And this is how successful people, structure their days. And so it's like, there's no negotiating with myself. And frankly, it's easy for me now. It's not easy in the beginning, but it's easy for me now because it's just my day. Like I don't even need to set an alarm clock at 5 o'clock anymore. I just get up. I do still set it, but it just becomes habit. And what I would say, and I think my next slide, I'm going to skip ahead a slide, but literally like for me, it was like, just start doing one, just pick one thing that you can be consistent with and start doing that one thing and start doing it now. Like if you really want to do this or you really want to, become the person that you want to become, just start with one thing. For me, it was going to the gym because that, and I get like the gym's not for everybody, but there's other things you can do. For me, physical health and mental health, I realized were like hand in hand. I was an athlete and a well, how do I want to describe this? I never committed myself to anything or in my early life as far as like sports or anything. Like I was always talented and good at things, but I never really gave anything the effort or the time to be successful. So I just kind of got by, like in school, in athletics. I just did what was sort of necessary and I got by on, fortunate, like natural kind of ability. But it wasn't until a lot of that was kind of taken away for me to a degree. I mean, just getting older and some injuries and things that prevented me from a lot of the physical activities that I was doing to kind of keep my head on straight. Finding something that I thought I would never do in CrossFit, for me it was. I always thought it was lame, and I thought the workouts were stupid, and the people that did it were stupid, and I hated going to the gym. But for me, like, I found a community and I found a routine, and that completely started the process of changing everything for me. So whether it's working out, whether it's, going for a walk or meditating or whatever the thing is, like that you feel like you can be consistent with on a day-to-day basis, I would encourage everybody to just pick one thing, start with that thing, do it early in the morning. And then like you just start adding things on to that, and it just becomes part of your day, just becomes part of your life. Like for me, it's like the gym is just part of my day now. I do it every day pretty much, unless, you know, there's extenuating circumstances. My wife is traveling and I need to take the kids to school or whatever, or I'm extremely sick. But other than that, it's just my daily routine. I'm going to go back to this one because I do think this is important as well. I'll be brief here, but you know, the space you work in, I would say is another factor that's going to enable you to be your most effective. So I encourage people to find a space, whether that's in your home or somewhere else, where you can kind of be away from distraction, somewhere clean. I always have a whiteboard or a notepad I keep by me at all times for taking notes and things that I want to be working on in my calling. Light, a lot of these are, you know, standing while you're speaking is a big one. I think it changes your tone, it changes your attitude if you're standing up versus slouched over trying to make calls and just kind of on repeat. Taking breaks through these periods is really important. Kind of like take a break, go for a walk, go stretch 10 minutes, 15 minutes, come back, rebuild your energy, refocus. And then the last thing is, like, to me, it was another one of these things, like my CrossFit analogy, where I just thought it was silly and stupid and cheesy, but like the vision board thing is it's kind of crazy. I never did one until I joined Kaza, and then they do their yearly team building thing where they plan for 2024 and everybody does a vision board, and I was kind of like rolling my eyes. But I did a vision board and I put some real things on there, a couple of which were like buying a house on a river, buying a house on a mountain. And like within the first year, and I put it up, it's sitting right here, still looking at it. Like I had like crossed off like half the shit on there. And like I was like, holy crap, like just like sitting here and looking at it every day and being like, when I'm sitting on the phone and like, let's be honest, nobody loves cold calling, but it's what works. It's what's worked in my business, and we're going to talk about that and why that is. But when I'm sitting there like making the calls and nobody's picking up the phone and I'm getting frustrated, like I look up on my wall or I look in front of my desk and I see the pictures of my kids and the mountain house that I want to buy, and like, you know, that's why I'm doing this, and it encourages me and it motivates me and it gets me out of my own head for why cold calling stinks and it's not working and all of these other reasons that I want to make up to, you know, prevent me from doing the activity that's going to make me successful. So yeah, I would say again, pick a thing. If you're in a spot where you feel like you're, you know, don't have direction, like pick your thing, start doing one thing, and then like just compound on that. Be consistent. It takes, I forget the number. I should know the number for this purpose, but it's like, you know,
What did I say, like 400?
yeah, something like that to build a habit, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy to start doing these things, but once you start doing them and commit to yourself that you're going to do them and do it because you want the life that you want, like that's when it becomes easy and becomes a habit and becomes part of your day. And if you haven't read Atomic Habits too, like great book for changing the way that you think about your day and your habits. I would highly encourage you to check it out if you haven't read it. Buy it or Audible it or whatever. It's a really good book. All right, so strategy. This is why we're all here. The most important piece to all of this, one of the places where people spend incredible amounts of time and energy, is trying to do too many things at one time. Meaning, I want to wholesale in Richmond, I want to wholesale in Winchester, I want to wholesale in DC, I want to wholesale in Maryland. I want to go after pre-foreclosure, I want to go after absentee owners, I want to go after whatever. I did that for a year or more. Kind of listless. I started marketing in Cumberland, Maryland, because I was like, oh, that's like an interesting market, low barrier to entry. And then I was looking at deals all over Northern Virginia. And then I did some agent outreach and I was making a bunch of offers on market. And then I tried all the things. Like I did all of that. The cheat code is what we call zone, which is basically getting extremely laser focused on, to start, on a particular geographic area, whether that's your zip code, another area that you're interested in investing. For me, that's what I did. That's why we ended up in Front Royal, because that's an opportunity zone for us, a place that we want to be investing and buying and holding. But I struggled and got frustrated and spent a lot of time and energy doing a lot of different things. And it was not until I zeroed in on Warren County and pre-foreclosure, more specifically in Warren County, that things started happening for me. It was a lot of trial and error, a lot of time wasted, a lot of overanalyzing. So the first step in this process, and again, every wholesaler has their methodologies. This is the methodology that we have used and that has been successful for us. And frankly, I think it's great because it teaches you on a small scale how to do the right activity that then you can take and expand your territory or expand or move to another market. But it's the same activity. It's just very intentional. So what I would like for kind of like some homework, let's call it, is to identify your geographic market. That could be, like I said, a zip code, a county. I would try, the smaller you can get, really, like, honestly, the better, in my opinion. But I wouldn't, a neighborhood, if you wanted to get that specific. And then within that geographic location, nail down a specific subset of seller that you want to market to and to be doing your outreach to. So that could be pre-foreclosure. We'll talk more about pre-foreclosure probably than anything, because that's where I've been, and that's where a lot of my successes come from. But there are many other places you can go to find, seller avatars that you can go after. Pre-foreclosure, absentee owner, for sale by owner, probate. I mean, you guys know the basic ones. If you don't, we could talk about it if you're having trouble figuring out who you want to target. And the zone method is basically zeroing on your target market. So that's what we're talking about. Own the mind share, nurture and grow your database, empower, impact your community. I'm not going to talk too much about zone right now because I really want to spend some time talking about kind of like the lead gen strategy. Zone is like how you really grow bigger and impact your community and stuff like that. But I want to focus on kind of lead gen and scripting and stuff too, because I know that's, you guys want to, a couple of you, but Boydie wants to find his first deal. Like, you can start tomorrow, you can start today, by just doing some of the things that we're going to talk about here. So we're going to look at more like, let's start taking action now. Let's talk about how we can do that. Does anybody have any questions so far? Sorry, I know I'm kind of running through this stuff fairly quickly. No, good. Okay.
Um,
Yep.
I can save it for later. It was just around like identifying your market, like the questions you were asking yourself.
Yeah,
to,
go
like,
ahead. No, we could talk about it. Oop. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, sort of like what you realized that you were trying to just like you were going all over the place. Like, what questions should we be asking ourselves to like pick one place, and kind of hone in on that.
Sure. For me, the question was, where do I want to be investing, or where do I want to be buying? Because ultimately, my goal was to use wholesaling to find opportunities for us to buy and hold. And so that area that we wanted to buy in was Front Royal. But there are other factors that you can look at. You know, I mean, boy, we talked a little bit about it. For me, it's like, where are investors wanting to buy? I mean, anywhere. You can't really go wrong anywhere in Northern Virginia. Everybody's hungry for opportunity here. I think people get frustrated, and we talked about this as well, that like you feel like there's not opportunity here, or there's not opportunity in Woodbridge or in Sterling. But like, if you are intentional, I'm telling you, with your market and zeroing in on a geographic area and just continuing to pepper with the same messaging, like, you will turn up that opportunity. Other questions you could be asking. I mean, I lean towards for me, I know this area. I guess if I was looking in another market, I would be looking at like population growth and median income and some of these other more like data driven factors. But for me, like, personally, I know this area. I know the areas where there's still opportunity, what areas are being developed. I mean, again, like Front Royal for me is like still very underdeveloped. There's still a lot of homes that need TLC. Like, I would say, like, just go driving around. If you're not sure, like, go pick a market and go drive around it, and like, what does it look like? Is there low income? Is it medium income? Do you see a lot of houses that look like they need, repair? Are there other investors? Do you see like houses that need work, and then next to it a house that's just been fixed up? Like, those are good indications to me. I mean, I guess I don't have like a really data driven answer to that, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's
If
super
that
helpful.
helps you. Vanessa?
Thanks. So I was thinking of starting in where I live, and I live in Reston. But then as I thought about it, I'm like, Reston, it's high end kind of neighborhood. Well, opportunities really exist in Reston,
Yeah. I would say Reston is a tougher market. We've done some stuff in Reston. But I would say, if I were you, if you want to start with a market close by, I would just go over to Sterling or Herndon and look in those areas. There's going to be a lot more opportunity there to buy things that that need repair. I mean, in every market, there's opportunity from something. Like, there's pre-foreclosures in Reston. There's probate opportunities in Reston. People get sick in Reston and have to move. But if you're really looking for like an opportunity to do more, trying to think how to phrase this, I would just say, from a development standpoint, Reston is going to be a much tougher market to find quantity of deals. Are there deals there? Yes. Is there going to be a ton of them? Probably not. So like I said, I would look, I mean, Sterling to me is like prime. Areas of Herndon, prime. I would kind of like just drive those areas and see, you know, you'll see it. There's areas of Sterling that are very nice. There's areas of Sterling that there's 1,000 houses that look like they could be fixed up, and that's where I would be directing my marketing. That's where I do direct some marketing. So, Phelan, sorry, Vanessa, does that answer your question?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you, because it affirmed what I was already thinking.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Sure, Phelan.
Oh, I just wanted to double back on what you were saying and then expand maybe on a little of what Bodhi had too. Like I retweet everything about the restaurant, right? Like I feel like there's no bad, like there is a deal everywhere. Like, I mean, I just moved from California and it's like, there are deals there. It's just way more expensive. And if you're starting out solo, it all depends. And Reston also has the double taxation. And so like, that's just something, it's just one more thing to calculate into deals. But for Bodhi, I see you have the Bigger Pockets shirt on too. Like, I mean, I feel like they're a great resource. Like there's so many, I feel like it even goes back. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm like figuring out my own zone, right? Like I'm coming on with Mike and he's Front Royal, but like he expanded on like the reason he chose Front Royal was not just like easy, accessible, like accessible entry point when it came to the like lower end of finances, but Mike was also knowing he was interested in buying and holding mattered to him too, right? So it's like, I think for me, it's like, okay, if I'm like just thinking solely about wholesaling, like if I'm like, I am looking for 30, 60, 90-day money to dispo, then that is part of where I'm going to figure out my zone. And maybe it doesn't matter. Like that is different than like, okay, am I looking at a place to wholesale that I also then want to buy an Airbnb, want to buy a short-term rental, right? So I feel like Bigger Pockets, like, I mean, they have tons of lists, you know, they have like the, oh gosh, Daily Dial, not Daily Dial. What's the one podcast from that guy? Oh gosh, I'm
Wholesale
blanking.
Hotline.
No, there's Wholesale Hotline, but then there's also, oh god, I'm totally blanking on it. Daily Digest. What is Daily?
Oh, you're talking about the Bigger Pockets guys.
Yeah, it's the bigger whatever. Like basically, like you know, they have tons of like the top 10 places to buy.
Yeah.
Like Airbnbs and like some of that stuff's solid. So like, I mean, I think you don't even have to start in state. But point being is like, I feel like even when you're like, there's breaking down your level of zone of like, what's your goal? Is it a 30, 60, 90-day money? Or is it like, I want to buy or I want to wholesale somewhere that if a property comes on that I'm interested in, I want to purchase it. And does it matter if it's drivable? Like, does it matter if it's drivable? Does it matter if it's in state for you? Anyway, so I just want to kind of like further expand. Like it's there, like at the end of the day, there are bad deals, right? But like there, like when it comes to locations, it's like all sorts of different areas. And like, that's where it's like, there's not just like one place. It like does affect, like it does come down to a level of personality to a degree too.
Yeah, I would just say if you're struggling to nail down a market, let's just talk about it, and we can talk through the intricacies of that market. I got there. Okay. Moving on. So next, once you've identified your market, you want to build and skip trace your list. So you want to have a list of people to call, and we're to call or to market to. So how do we do that? Driving for dollars is always a good option. So again, if Vanessa, you want to look for opportunities in Sterling, go drive to Sterling, take out, I mean, number one, there's now like tons of really great apps for this. Our CRM logs, like we have a driving for dollars in our CRM currently, but there's other apps that you can use where you literally just drive through a neighborhood and you could just like tap addresses on your phone as you go. So you don't have to sit there and like try and write and drive at the same time. I've done that. But driving for dollars is great. Like you're identifying distressed property, you know, already without even having a conversation that there's some level of distress there. The property's not in good shape. I always like that. I always drive for dollars. I'm constantly putting those types of properties into my CRM. Typically, we just mail them. We should probably be calling those. Actually, Phelan, that's a good one that we haven't talked about. Is I've got probably several hundred, and I would recommend, like, you know, spend some real time doing. If you're going to go that route, like you want to have 200-300 properties, it might take you a day or two to do it, or, you know, a couple hours here, a couple hours there. But like build yourself a list of like a couple hundred, few hundred properties at least, to start marketing to or calling or whatever your strategy is. We'll talk a little bit about that next. But list stacking is another way, which is basically just using something like batch leads or prop stream, or hell, if you guys want to go that route, I've got access to batch leads account. I'm happy to pull lists of properties for people. And then you take those lists and you skip trace them, or you could use something like True People Search, which is free, to get phone numbers. And the reality of this business is all you really need to do deals or to find opportunities is an address, a name, and a phone number. And like, give me those three things, and like, I can go find it. I can do a deal. Now, you have to be able to get somebody on the phone, have a conversation with them, but like, it's as basic as that. Like, you don't need much more than that. So here are the steps so far. Identify your zone, your market, find your geographic location, find your seller subset, build a list, and then we're going to talk about strategies for reaching out to these people. Ultimately, we're going to mainly talk about cold calling, because I think that personally is the best way to dig up opportunities. So we'll talk about cold calling. So you've got your list, you've skip traced your list, you've got a handful of phone numbers of those people. What do you do next? This is kind of like my step-by-step system for how I reach out to people. I'm always going to call first, because at the end of the day, you want to get somebody on the phone. You need to have a conversation with somebody. Can you close deals via text? Sure. Can you close deals via DM? Sure. I know people that have done it, but for me, it's like, I want to get somebody on the phone. I want to have a real conversation with somebody. So for me, cold calling is always number one. Don't be afraid. It's very intimidating at first to double dial and triple dial people's phone numbers. Like, I get that it might seem a lot of things. It might seem annoying. It might seem like you're harassing somebody. But let me tell you that it works more than anything. If you call somebody and then call them right back 2 seconds later, like, what are they going to say? I've never had anybody, by the way, say, why'd you just call me twice in a row? They just pick up the phone just like they would on the first ring or the first dial. For whatever reason, either they think it's important or they think whatever they think about you calling them twice in a row. I'm telling you that it works. And it is intimidating. And I still kind of get a ick feeling about it, but I'm telling you that it works. So I would highly recommend, if you're cold calling, dial the number, especially if you know it's a good phone number. If you get somebody identified by their voicemail, or Phelan will tell you in the cold calling process, you're going to call in this process of skip tracing and then calling. They give you a list of 5 numbers, and you go to True People Search and there's another 5 numbers. Well, 95% of those numbers are going to be bad anyways. So like, you really don't have a lot to worry about. A lot of people get so paralyzed by picking up the phone. They'll sit there and stare at the phone number. And I say they, I mean me, because I've done this before. It's like you sit there, you're like, oh God, I got to make the call. I got to make the call. I got to make the call. And you dial the number. Finally, you're like, okay, here we go. And it's a bad phone number. And you're just like, okay, well, so you're just wasting time. So like, you got to get past the fear of dialing. For me, is just still like, just the simple act of like dialing the phone for me still can be difficult. But like, once you start doing it in repetition, it's not difficult. It's not scary.
Great
Nobody's
chance
gonna-
to practice that deep breath work.
Yeah. Practice your deep breath work. So we're going to talk more about cold calling and scripting here. I just wanted to kind of run through like my strategy for seller outreach when it comes to these cold leads. So I'm always going to call first. Then if I don't get somebody on the phone, but I think I've identified a good number, I'll usually send them just a very, very simple text message, just like this. Is this John's phone? That's it. I'm not going to go into detail. At the end of the day, all I want to do is be able to have a conversation with somebody. If they answer, which, sometimes they do, who is this? No. A lot of the times it's just no. I might go into a little more detail to try and have a conversation, but if I've identified that it's the person that I'm trying to track down, that's usually enough for me. And I might not even respond. I might just call them. If I get a response, I might just call them right there, right after I get that text. After texting, when you skip trace, like with a service like Batch or even True People Search, I think lists emails. I don't love it. I don't want to waste too much time on it because I feel like I've never gotten a great response rate from email. But if you see somebody's got a good looking Gmail, they're named at Gmail or something identifiable, have a template, or maybe I can send a template out even. I don't care. Template or email. Send you guys my template, but it's very basic.
What I've started doing with emails, I can't say I've had success yet either. I had one callback that said, I got your email and your voicemail. But what I've started doing is I have my template, and if the email is in Batch Leads True Simple, I do it as I'm calling them. So I don't feel like I'm not spending time like, oh, I'm going to email 50 people and that's the only thing I'm doing. It's only like, okay, I'm just double tapping this person basically.
Yeah, that's what it is. I do this in a sequence, especially on the first one. Go ahead, Vanessa.
I also wanted to say that I agree with, so at my W-2 job, it's financial services, we call people, and I do what Phelan just said. When I'm calling someone, I always send an email while I'm calling.
Sure.
Now, email responses are not as good as phone call response, but the good thing about an email response is maybe a month down the line, they're going to remember that Mike sent me an email. I need this guy's number. I don't know where the voice was, and they can quickly search the email and call you back. So, from my W-2 job, I've had success with people finding my email and emailing me back several months after, or calling and say, I found your email and I'm calling you back. So
Yeah, I like that.
But I don't waste time like doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's like a double
I
tap.
agree.
Like,
Yeah,
if I'm
I hear you.
if I'm getting a 30-second call where they're not answering,
Yep.
then and their email's right there, and I can in that time it takes to press and then hang up, send the email, then I'm like double tapping. But I'm not like, okay, I'm gonna go in and
Yeah.
send 50 emails today.
So this is actually, so I've called them, I've texted them, I've emailed them, nothing. I'll actually insert this probably in here. I've had a lot, especially recently for whatever reason, of success just searching people on Facebook and sending them a DM, like the same message. Hey, my name's Mike. I'm a real estate investor. I was reaching out about your property on 123 Main Street. And I've actually been had reasonable success with it, especially like last week. I think I had like 2 or 3 leads come from after trying to call, text, all the other things from social media. So I wouldn't count that one out. And I would also say probably not a terrible amount of people are doing that. I don't think, but it's been working. So I would throw that one in there. Next course of action for me with pre-foreclosure specifically, and this could go for any sort of avatar, but I've got a freaking stack of just simple, like this one's not simple. I've got various templates because I've been doing this for a while now, so I constantly am changing them. But like, I literally will just handwrite a letter. My name is Mike. I'm a real estate investor. I noticed your property, 123 Main Street. Curious if you would consider a cash offer, or if there's anything else I can help you with the property. Call me Mike. And I just literally like hand wrote it once. I stick it on the photocopier. I make 100 copies of it. I've been experimenting with direct mail for a while. Various avatars, various types of messaging, various types of letters and postcards and everything. And I found by far just being direct with a simple message, handwritten, has worked best for me. So I've all but stopped all of the other direct mail for now. And like I'll just have these letters ready. I need a better system around like how to actually maybe have some kind of like, I don't know, printable something, but I literally just handwrite the envelope now, stick it in, stuff it. I'll do like maybe 10 or 20 of them a day when I'm sitting making a lot of calls and send them out. Decent success rate. Again, it's just another touch, right? It's just about continuing to touch, call, text, email, DM, direct mail, door knocking. It's kind of my last resort. I just don't love doing it personally, but some people love it. I've gotten a couple deals from door knocking as well. Just be careful. Obviously, like, you know, you're knocking on a stranger's door that's in some kind of turmoil, you know, just be safe with that. That would be the only thing I would say. Bring somebody with you or bring a weapon. So that's kind of like my touch system for finding new leads. Anybody have questions about any of those items?
So, Mike, when you are cold calling, what do you mean by double and triple dial? Like, do you let's say I just called you and your voicemail says, "Hi, this is Mike Cappello's voicemail. Leave a message. I'll call you back." After I leave the message and I call right back again, or
I don't. So another thing I go backwards and forwards on a little bit. I don't love leaving voicemails personally. I'm not going to leave if I'm going to double dial somebody, I'm certainly not going to leave them a voicemail in between. If I get the voicemail, I hang up, I just call them right back, and then I call them right back.
okay. And then, so let's say you called twice or three times today. You call them. Do you call that same person again tomorrow? Like, what is the?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, it starts getting like, I like to sort of break it depending on the situation. Also, I go after pre-foreclosure, so I know there's a predetermined deadline on that. The auction date is this date. If it's a week before the auction date, I might call them every day. If
Mhm.
it's 3 months out, I'll probably space a lot of this stuff out. Like, the first time I reach out, I'll cold call, text, email, and stick a letter in the mail. And then I might wait a few days or until the next week. I'll cold call them and I'll text them again. The following week, I might stick another piece of mail, and then I'll call them and text them. But if, it depends on what kind of, to me, it depends on what kind of seller you're looking at. If it's like just a generic driving for dollars, I probably won't be calling them necessarily every day. I'll have like a list that I'm calling today, and then I might give it a couple days or a few days, and then I'll call them again. But you don't want to piss anybody off. People are already pissed off most of the time when you're cold calling them. So I would just say, depending on the situation, give them a few days, have other lists to call, like kind of like, shift your lists down. And we'll talk a little bit about some other strategy around that too, about like setting your day as far as what lists you're calling. Okay, we talk a little bit about scripting here. We're already at an hour. Does anybody have? My initial thought was that this would be an hour. I'm fine continuing to go. I've got a lot more to cover, but I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time. You guys, does anybody have a pressing deadline here? Or are we good to keep pressing on? Boydie,
Keep
good.
pressing on.
Okay,
We're good.
cool, awesome.
I would like to drop, but Mohammed was telling me he was trying to join, but he was not admitted to the meeting. Maybe
Oh shit, maybe I didn't see it. Tell him to try again if he can.
Okay.
I might
Nice
have
to meet you all.
All right, Mahmoud, thanks for stopping in.
Thank you.
Okay. I got to keep my eye on two screens now. Okay. So scripting. Obviously this is an important part. You can go online and find all sorts of scripts and all sorts of ways people approach it. Again, this is what's worked for me. I learned a lot of my scripting probably from Sub 2 and some mix of I'm trying to even think. I did all of the YouTube University stuff too, but at the end of the day, for me, it's like it's just about being natural, knowing what questions you need to ask, and like building rapport in the way that works best for you, I think is what it comes down to. There are some things that are important, some information that's important to gather. How you do it, I don't want to have a script in front of me. Like when you're reading off a script, it just feels contrived and unnatural, and people catch on to that kind of stuff. So like what I would encourage you to do is understand the information that you need to gather. We'll cover it. And then try and figure out a cadence that works for you and a system or a way that feels comfortable for you to get the information that you need to get to identify leads. So what we're going to be talking about here is like, essentially, how do I know, even if there's Mohammed. How do I know? Hey, Mohammed, you there?
Hey, how are you, Mike?
Good, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We're talking about scripting. Perfect time for you to be here.
Okay, great.
So we'll just jump into it. My playbook is keeping it simple as possible. Like, what you want to be doing is asking good questions and letting the seller open up. When you it's a hard thing to think about, but I'm telling you from all the deals that I've done, when you have a motivated seller, all they want to do is talk about their situation. Like, when you find a motivated lead, and that's really what we're here to do, they will talk. They will tell you about their situation. They'll tell you about the house. Even talk to a lot of people that are unmotivated, but what we're looking for is real motivation to sell fast for cash and get out of their situation. So I'll give you guys some of my basic scripting around how I start a conversation. And again, it's very simple. For me, like when I'm cold calling, and this, we're talking essentially about cold calling again here, because this is what's worked for us. And I think it's a skill that every wholesaler needs to have, regardless. You're going to have to close deals. You're going to have to know how to talk on the phone. So for me, it's like, there's no better place to start than with cold calling. Now, you could go and pay. Phelan and I were having this conversation this morning. Like, yes, there are companies out there that will, VAs, that will generate leads for you that you can call, warm leads. But I think going through the motions of doing your own prospecting and cold calling and everything is like, it's going to be very beneficial for you in the long run. Develop a thick skin, get hung up on a couple times or a lot of times. You know, is it fun? No, but like you're going to learn more that way. And it's value that you're not going to get by paying somebody else to do your lead gen for you. Do a couple deals and then hire a VA. That's what I would say. So my opener is always very simple. Seller picks up the phone. Hello. I say, hello, is this John? Yes. I'm sorry to bother you. My name's Mike. Did I catch you at a bad time? The reason I do that is because I want to get a couple yeses out of them right up front. I want them to say yes a couple times. I want to get my foot in the door. I want to get a conversation started. So I don't want to just call them and they pick up the phone and then I just start in on them about how I'm a real estate investor and I want to buy their house. I want to get in, get them to say yes a couple times, get them to affirm a couple things, and then we jump into, yep.
What if they do say, what if they say that you have caught them at a bad time?
Okay. Is there a good time for me to call you back?
Okay.
Simple. Again,
Gotcha.
like every what you want to work on, and it's hard to do. It doesn't come naturally. But what you want to try and do is keep your statements and your questions as concise as possible. And that will come with repetition.
Okay.
But you know, you don't want to waste people's time. You don't want to jump on the phone and start rambling and asking a bunch of questions. And frankly, it's easier. Like, just try and keep the conversation, you know, your part of the conversation short and concise and precise, like questions that you're asking. And don't overthink it. So as we jump into the conversation, these are just some things to think about. I'm always wanting to come from a place of service. So if you kind of have, that's more of like the mentality, right? Be understanding, serve the better good, be a power for good, we say. Service over self is kind of like, I tell people that, like, I want to, like, I had a seller the other day, he was just like gushing about how happy he was that we met and how what a wonderful person I am, all of this stuff. And I'm like, it's just service over self. And like the freedom that comes from that is not only like financial, like the benefit that you get financially from helping people in these situations, but it's even more like spiritually, I guess, freeing and rewarding, frankly, than the money. Once you start getting yourselves into these situations and you see how desperate people can be and how terrible some of these situations are that you come across, and being able to serve these people in a way where you're changing their lives or saving their lives or preventing them from a terrible situation or helping them in a terrible time in their life. Having the service mentality in your head as you're having these conversations, and not just being, I want to buy your house, which I consider sales breath, like just really being pushy with the sales part of selling, of buying their house. At the end of the day, that's what we're in business to do. But if you come from a place of all I care about is buying your house, like it comes across really poorly and people will see through you and you're going to have a hard time. If you come from a place of service and trying to be understanding and empathetic to people, you're going to have a lot more success. It's going to be a lot more rewarding to you financially, spiritually. So just something to think about as you're having these conversations. Be a power for good, service over self. I'm thinking that constantly when I'm having these conversations and meeting with people. Another good one is matching tones with people. Somebody is super type A, analytical, Phelan. Oh, that was a sorry.
I was just saying,
I thought you raised your hand. That was a comment.
oh yeah, just had the comment, the find the bunnies in the room.
Yeah, do you want to explain that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, just basically like, just because you can't buy their house now or they're like not open to it doesn't mean that they don't like maybe need some, like your financial advisor or your, you know, a nurse, or like, you don't know, like there's something that you might be able to bring value to that then's going to be an extra personal connection that then's actually going to build rapport. And then maybe they end up like, you know, they get 3 offers and they're like, none of these people cared, but you took time to talk to me and help me. And you know, said you would help me move my furniture out, and all these other people are lowballing me. It's like, you may be equally lowballing them, but like maybe you just took the point to be like, there's a person on the other end of this, and that makes all the difference between you getting it and not, and actually helping them.
Yeah, going the extra mile to be a resource, not just a buyer, definitely makes a difference. I mean, for me specifically with the pre-foreclosures, my first pitch to them is like, how can I just, what is your goal? If you want to stay in the house, how can I help you do that? Let's talk about that piece before I go into, well, I just want to buy your house. I'm like, how can we help you work with the bank to solve this problem and keep you in your house, if that's ultimately your number one goal? And at the end of the day, it may not be an option, but if you come from that place of service and you try and help them and you try and work with the bank to stop their foreclosure or help them with a loan modification or whatever, you know, at the end of the day, their best option may be to sell you the house, and you've already spent time building your rapport and being service to them and being a resource to them, that of course they're going to want to work with you on the sale of the property. So it's coming from a place of service, and not just being a buyer, being a resource. So kind of my next step, if I've identified the person and they say they have time, and again, this is just kind of the way that I phrase it, but I don't want to waste too much of your time. Reason for my call, I'm a real estate investor here in Front Royal. I noticed you own a property on 123 Main Street. Is this property you may consider selling? Simple, concise, straightforward, not a lot of fluff. We're just looking for a yes or no here. Now you might get a lot of different answers to this. Yes might be one of them. No is going to be one of them. Who are you is going to be one of them. Maybe. Or a lot of the times people just say, well, what's your offer? We're looking for yeses. Like, we want to identify motivated sellers, not just somebody that may consider selling. There's value in that. But if you're looking to do a deal in 30 days, you're looking for yeses. You want to find somebody that wants to sell their house. They need to sell their house. Last bit here, build rapport by building credibility. So you want to, through the conversation, try and build some credibility. I've helped dozens of people with pre-foreclosure in the area. I mean, I kind of throw those tidbits in as I go. But just another thing to these are all things you just kind of want to be having your brain as you're having these conversations and building your own cadence and your own script. Again, like, use my script if you want, if you're comfortable. But to me, it's like, I speak very differently than Vanessa might speak, than Boydie might speak, than Phelan might speak. So, use these as frameworks, but try and work on building your own script to a degree, or your own tone. So now we talk about, okay, we've identified the person, they're interested in, or they said yes, they want to sell the property. How do we know if we actually have a motivated lead here? And again, what we're looking for is people that need to sell, not that want you to give you an offer, or maybe I'll sell or whatever. We're looking for definitive, they need to sell this property. And how do we figure that out? With the 4 pillars. So I'm going to stop right here, because a lot of you guys are new to wholesaling, and if you really want to take action today and start making some calls, but you feel like maybe none of this is overly complicated, but part of my pitch to you would be, if all you want to do to get started is start calling people and identify if people are interested in even selling their house, and you want me to and you want to be able to hear how I have the conversation, all you need to do is get somebody on the phone. Are you interested in selling your house? Can I set up an appointment to talk to my partner? And then we can jump in from there and have this rest of this conversation. And right there, you've identified a lead. You would get compensated for the lead, and then we would do the acquisition piece and the disposition piece. And if you're interested in learning about that or being on the call, like we're happy to work with you on that piece. And I'll talk about that at the end, how we can work together. But I just want to throw that in there. Like if all you feel comfortable doing right now is identifying leads and that's where you want to start, like let's go. Start making the calls, start doing the activity. Because that's what's going to get you ahead faster than anything. If you're just sitting there wanting to know exactly what to say on every piece of this, if that's going to hold you up, like just start by having a simple conversation. Are you John? Did I catch you at a bad time? I noticed you own a property on 123 Main Street. Is it a property you'd be consider selling? Yes. Great. Well, I'm just making some phone calls to the area to see if I can identify some people that may be willing to sell a property. I'd love to schedule an appointment with my partner to talk to you. When would be a good time to do that? Boom, there you've got a lead. I would call that a warmish lead, but at least you've identified somebody that may consider selling their property. But how do we know if we have a good lead? How do we know if we have a hot lead? We have the 4 pillars of a motivated lead. So we want to identify their motivation. Why do they need to sell? Again, they need to sell the property. Their timeline, how soon do they need to sell that property? What's the condition of the property? And what's the price? How much do they want to walk away with in their pocket? So if I've now identified the person, I've identified that they're interested in selling or they need to sell the property, what's my next step? Great. Do you mind if I ask you a few more questions so we can understand the situation and decide if we'll be a good fit for this property? I could probably work on that wording a little bit. I know that didn't really come across very well. So, but you just want to let them know, like, I just need to ask you a few more questions so I can understand the situation. Even that would be fine. So we're going to talk about each one of these. Motivation. Why do they need to sell? How do you figure that out? For me, you said, hey, do you mind if I ask you a few more questions? They say yes. Well, can you mind catching me up to speed? What's going on with the property? Why are you thinking about selling it? And then from there, just with that question, all you're doing, and we go back to keeping it very simple, validating and asking questions throughout. And just what we say, dummy up. Like, just tell me more about that. I don't understand. Can you help me with this? Did you mean that? And when I say validate question statement, what has you thinking about selling? Catch me up to speed. Well, my mom passed away. I've been living in the house. You're just validating that. Yeah. I'm terribly sorry to hear about your mom. What's been going on, since you've been living there? Simple questions, validation. Simple questions, validations. I understand. That's terrible. I've dealt with that before. Validating what they're saying and just asking simple questions. And then at the end of that, so what I'm hearing is that your mom passed away. You've been living in the house. You've been struggling to make payments. Just make a statement confirming everything with them. And you want to try and dig in to this. Dig into the pain, dig into the situations, pull out as much information about what's been going on as possible. Yeah, I was going to go in another direction, but does anybody have any questions about how to identify motivation? I mean, it's pretty simple. You really just want to understand. Again, come from a place of understanding, be compassionate, validate and question. Shanor?
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, you had your hand up. I don't know if that was from before.
Oh, no. Probably
Okay.
from before.
Okay. Timeline, how soon do they need to sell? So for me, a hot lead is somebody that needs to sell within 30 days. That's like go time. You've identified they need to sell, what their motivation is, and they tell you that they've got 30 days to sell this house, or they'd like to sell the house within a month, within this month. That's a hot lead. That's like, we need to get to work now. A warm lead, I would say 30 to 69, 30 to 90 days. They need to do whatever X, Y, and Z thing, and they'd like to sell in the next month or two. And then a sort of like a nurture and a follow-up lead would be anything over 3 months. Questions you can ask around the timeline. I mean, simple. Tell me about your timeline for the sale. How soon do you need to sell the property? What are you trying to accomplish with the sale? What happens if you don't sell? Those are all really good questions to kind of get an idea of where they're at from a timing perspective. I'm going to go back. No, I'll keep going here, actually. Condition of the property. Number one, you can always ask for photos if you can. Photos or a video. I mean, can be tough with people. You got an elderly couple or whatever, you might not get it, but just get general sense for the condition of the property with some basic questions. Confirm bed bath count. Sometimes like records show X or Y, but maybe they've done some additions or done some remodeling or something. Is there a basement? Is it finished? Any updates to the kitchen and bath in the last 5 years? Basically, we're just looking to see if they've done recent renovations. And then major systems is really high dollar stuff. How old's the roof? How old's the HVAC? Water heater. I threw this in there because we deal with septic a lot. So is it on public water or sewer? I would ask about the septic too, which I didn't throw in here, but if they're on septic, when was the last time it was serviced? Any other issues that we should know about, or anything else you can tell me that may be important about the property? People love talking about their own property, so you can spend, frankly, way too long talking about condition. Price. I always try and avoid asking them for an actual, like, tell me what price you want for this property. I try and phrase it as like a solution. So like, if I could cover your mortgage, pay for moving expenses, help you buy the house as is and take care of any junk that you may want to leave behind. Try and throw all my value adds into the asking price. If I can do all of these things for you, how much money do you want to walk away from with this in this transaction? If I can solve this problem for you, how much cash do you want to put in your pocket? Instead of, well, how much do you want for the property? Like, this is a great opportunity to express all the value that you're bringing to them.
That's a very good way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, a lot of people just, you know, get their Zillow emails and Redfin emails that say my house is worth, you know, $200,000 more than it's really worth, because Zillow is just looking at their bed bath count and their square footage. It's not taking into account the condition of the property or all of the things that you're going to do to help them to get out of there, and you're going to cover their closing costs, and you're going to pay, You know, they're not going to pay any realtor fees. So this is a really great time to do your value add for why working with you is going to be beneficial to them. And then what do you really need to walk away? Some people might just say, I don't need anything. Just solve this problem for me. And whatever it costs you on the house. That's happened to me multiple times. I don't want anything from this. I just want out of this situation. Somebody raise their hand. Janora, your hand's still up. I don't know if that is the same.
Oh, why? I'm sorry. I guess I had just not taken it out.
I heard another, maybe that was.
There was a comment, I think, in
Yeah, I think Phelan said something in the chat.
Yeah.
I just value added a couple things you could ask if it's pre-foreclosure, interest rate, current monthly, you know,
Yeah.
if possible sub two. So just other things that if you've got a good rapport going with them, you can, you know, to open up.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it on the simple side to start, but yes, Phelan, like if we're going after a certain subset with pre-foreclosure, there's additional data we want to look at that may, you know, push it. But for the initial conversation, for somebody that just wants to get their foot in the door, start having the conversations, like I would say, just keep it on the simple side. And then the other thing I would say, let me see where this goes. I don't remember what my next slide is. Yeah, right here. If you feel all you really need to do to get started is identify that somebody wants to sell a property. Okay. First of all, we already talked about that. But like, if you can just dig in a little bit to the motivation and the timeline and get a good sense for that, I don't even care really about the condition or the price. I mean, those are just additional talking points. But like, you can have the initial conversation, identify the motivation, get a solid timeline. And those two things are like, they need to sell the property in 30 days because they've got X situation going on. Like, that's a hot lead. And let's talk about what we need to do to get this property under contract. And if you hit it at any point in these conversations, you hit a wall, you feel like you've gotten all the information you can get, or you don't feel comfortable asking more questions, or whatever. Maybe they ask you a question and you're unsure and you get a little flustered. You just stop. Just stop the conversation. I really appreciate your time. I'd love to take this information back to my partner and see what we can do to help you out. When would be a good time to circle back with you and have another conversation? I think we can help you out, but I just want to have a conversation with my partner. Everybody is a partner. Every conversation that I have, it doesn't matter what it is. Let me talk to my partner. Let me see what I can do for you. I don't care what they're asking for. I don't care what the question is. Just say, I've got a partner. I'd love to run this by them. See what we can do to help you out. It's a great way to get out. I use that with negotiating. I use it with lead gen. Just make your partner the bad guy, the good guy, whatever you want to make him imaginary. But just say, give yourself an out. I'd love to run this by my partner and see what we can do to help you out. When's a good time to follow up with you? Set a follow-up appointment. Call me, text me, call another person that you're working with. Talk about what you have on your hands. Figure out what the next steps are. And again, make sure you set the follow-up appointment with them ideally while you have them on the phone. If you need to adjust that, I would say lock them down and then adjust after if you have to. But this is like where people feel like they need to know everything. If you're unsure of anything, just say, I'm not sure. Let me talk to my partner about that, and I'll get back to you. Use your partner. Your partner is your biggest asset. Just some general tips, tricks. Record your calls. Record your calls. Listen to your calls. Bring them here. Let us listen to them. Talk about them, what you could do better. You'll hear, I still do it. I cringe when I listen to my own voice, as does everybody else. But you'll hear where you're umming, where you're ahhing, when you're making these filler noises. You want to try and eliminate that stuff. Listening to your own calls will make things easier because it'll improve your cadence, it'll improve your tone, it'll help you eliminate the small hiccups in your conversation. So I would encourage you guys to do that. You can do it on Zoom. You could probably, there's probably apps on your phone. I haven't done it. I've been using Loom. I've used Zoom. I don't know if there's any other OOMs that you could use, but there's probably other, I know there are other recording softwares and apps probably that you could use, but I would highly encourage you to do that. I'd love to have some people record some calls for next week that we could listen to, that we could critique, that we could talk about. I'll bring some of my own calls, maybe we could listen to. But I would highly encourage you guys to do that. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about follow-up and tracking. God, this is taking forever. We're almost on an hour and 40 minutes. Do you have a question, Vanessa? Sorry, I saw you raise your hand. No? Okay. This is important, having a system for follow-up and tracking. Hopefully you guys can see this. Again, I guess I wasn't really thinking maybe I should zoom in on these a little bit, but this is what I started using when I first started cold calling. Literally just a Google spreadsheet, county, address, seller's name. I'm doing pre-foreclosure, so it has the trustee name and the auction date, phone numbers, notes. I think originally I had like a last contacted date in here, but oh shoot, it's not on there. But as simple as this, like you want a place where you know when you've last reached out, what your last action was. On 2/15, I exchanged Facebook messages, not interested in selling, blah, blah, blah. Or send a text message on 2/16, send a direct mail on 2/16. You want to be able to see where your activity is happening. For us, we're using Resimply. I put the link here at the bottom if you're interested in checking it out, and also a QR code. I think it's like $100 a month to start. Do you need to spend $100 a month on a CRM to start? No. If you have the money, it's a nice thing to do. It does a lot of stuff for you. It helps keep you organized. But you can simply just put all your leads into a spreadsheet and do it that way. I did that for probably 6 months before I invested into a CRM system. But I would highly recommend having some kind of system for tracking your conversations, your calls, your notes. Janor?
Did you enter all this yourself?
Yeah.
Or okay.
You could hire a VA to do your data aggregation for you and just update the notes section. I know people have W-2s and not a ton of time. If you have more money than time, there are ways to systematize this or pay people to do stuff like this. The data piece, even the cold calling piece. But what we're talking about is simple as it gets and as low cost as it gets as far as getting started in wholesaling. But you could certainly pay somebody to build your data for you. But yes, when I first started, I just did it as I went. Either they were from driving for dollars, these were pre-foreclosures, so I just was looking at the list of pre-foreclosures. If I was calling somebody, I would put their info in here. I would put their skip trace info in here, and then I would call them and make notes as I went along. So again, we're just some notes here. Consistency and persistency is the key to winning in wholesaling. The money is in the follow-up. Follow-up. You're not going to close a deal on your first conversation. Is it possible? Sure. Does it happen? Very rarely. Take good notes in your conversations. Find somewhere to put them. Again, track your conversations. Set tasks or appointments using your spreadsheet, using your calendar, using your CRM system. Stay organized. Set your follow-up tasks. Know who you're going to call the next day. Like, when you're starting, it seems overwhelming, but as you like chunk things down, if you call 50 sellers in a day and you have a conversation with 2 of them and you take good notes, but you have 48 people that you haven't talked to, and you just say, I'm going to follow up with these 48 people on Wednesday because I called them on Monday, or on Thursday because or whenever the next time is, on Wednesday, you already have your list of people who you're going to call. So like, just stay organized, set tasks for yourself or set appointments in your calendar. I use Google Calendar forever. It takes us 8 to 10 conversations on average to close a deal. So think about that. From the initial conversation, I have to have, on average, 8 to 10 conversations with that person over the phone, via text, whatever, before I get a property under contract. So if you call somebody once, you have a good, you have a good conversation with that person and you think that's going to be it, you got a lot of follow-up to do. You got a lot of conversations you got to have before you actually have a deal. So make sure you're tracking, make sure you're setting yourself appointments. Time kills all deals. That's in here somewhere. That's like Rob, my partner Rob, many of you guys know him, says that all the time, and it's true. Time kills all deals. If you have a good conversation with somebody, set a follow-up, set it in your calendar, make sure you don't forget, be on time. If you give people time, if you give people rope, you will lose opportunities. This is getting a little advanced, but it's a good thing to start getting in the habit of doing. I've been terrible about this, I'll be honest. Phelan and I have been working on this, but it's important. Tracking the number of calls to conversations, to leads, to appointments, to closed deals. If you are able to track these things, like even if you're just, as you're making calls, you're just making tick marks, which is what we've started doing on a piece of paper. Have a call, make a tick mark. Have a call, make a tick mark. Have a conversation, make a tick mark. Start tracking this stuff. All of this becomes a math problem. And you know exactly how many calls you need to make to generate how many leads, to generate how many appointments, to how many closed deals. So I know in my business right now, I have to make 100 calls to have 5 conversations to set 1 appointment. And it takes me 4 appointments to close 1 deal. So that means I need to make 400 calls to close a deal. And if I want to do 5 deals, I need to make 2,000 calls if I want to do 5 deals a month. And I can tell you right now, I'm nowhere near that. So, but it just becomes math at that point. And it's a really good thing I would encourage people to do, to start doing right away, because it gets away from you quickly. And if you understand your numbers, you understand the amount of activity that you need to do to generate the business that you want to generate, to live the life you want to live. Create certainty in your numbers, create certainty in your income, right there. Yeah. How many slides do I have left? So I'm going to probably cut myself off at some point here, and we can pick the conversation back up. But I did want to talk about this. I think this might be, we're getting close to the end here. We look at this business really in two buckets. So we've talked a lot about the cold outreach, the direct to seller stuff. Obviously, that's important. That's where your deals are going to come from as you start in this business. But the other side of that, and the other piece of the zone method, is really building your database and building your network in your area. So you kind of want to, and I touched on this earlier about scheduling, you kind of want to do both simultaneously. And I would encourage you guys to be intentional with your calendar and your time about setting time for each activity. So you set aside whatever time you have, 2 hours, because you've got, a W-2, but you were to call from 4 to 6 o'clock on Monday, direct to seller from your list. And then on Wednesday, you're going to focus on having conversations with people in your network that you've met at grid events and building relationships with those people. And you want to set a very similar, like maybe have a separate spreadsheet or a second part of your CRM that is dedicated to those folks, because you want to start building those relationships. And it's the same messaging for both people. I buy houses in Woodbridge, cash as is. That's your direct to seller messaging. You're giving the same messaging to your agents that you're meeting at grid, the investors that you're meeting at grid, the lenders and other title companies, people that you're meeting at grid. I buy houses in Winchester, cash as is. Same messaging to both groups of people, and building those relationships and continuing to give people that message and providing them value. How can I help you? How's your business? Just generally building friendships and relationships with people in your area. That's what I'm doing with Grid and Front Royal and Amanda and all these great folks that we've been meeting and bringing into our world in Front Royal. Because ultimately what you want to do is build evergreen marketing, meaning like you want people to come to you with those opportunities. You don't want to forever be cold calling somebody, right? You want people to be bringing you opportunities because they know you're the person to call when it comes to X thing in X market. So we look at it with two buckets. You want to start filling both buckets. You want to start building your leads, your direct to seller leads. You want to start building your database and your relationships and filling both buckets up until obviously things start flowing. Things start flowing out of the bucket. Leads start coming to you. Deals start coming to you. And it's really important to do both. So think about that. Think about time blocking, time for each activity. Each and every one of us have gotten together and had a coffee and do that in your network, in your area that you're focused on, and build those relationships. Tell people what you're doing. Follow up with those people. Remind them what you're looking for. Be a resource. Build meaningful relationships with those people. because you want them thinking of you. Okay. All right. I do want to talk about this is what's holding everybody back. This is the real stuff right here. 3 things holding everyone back from taking action. We're all guilty. It's okay. How do we overcome these things? That's what we're here to figure out. That's what we're here to do. Procrastination. I've done all of these things, by the way, at a very high level. Procrastination, putting things off, getting distracted, prioritizing the wrong activities. Oh, I need to set up my LLC. Oh, I need this system, this CRM, this thing, like, all of this is to say, like, you're not going to get past all of these things until, number one, this is why I wanted to talk about vision and mindset. Until you've got a clear vision in the right mindset, you've narrowed down your focus, and you start taking action, this is where you're going to be stuck. I guarantee you, if you're not stuck there now, you'll be stuck in one of these places. Paralysis by analysis, been there, done that. Overanalyzing opportunities, wanting to know all the information about a property. What exit strategy am I going to use for this property? Let me run numbers on this property before you've ever even had a conversation with anybody. That is the biggest time waster of all with new wholesalers, I can tell you. They're all time wasters, but that one will kill you. That one will drive you crazy. You sit there and you've identified a property that you think, for whatever reason, is a good opportunity. You start analyzing the numbers and you start trying to figure out how you're what's the ARV and what are the renovation costs going to be. And you've never even had a conversation with the seller. You just spent 2 hours analyzing something for somebody that, is happy living in their own filth and has no intention of selling their property whatsoever. And if you called them and found that out in about 30 seconds, you would have saved yourself 2 hours of overanalyzing. And, like, that's a real one. Perfectionism is what we've talked about to an extent. Feeling like you need to know everything, like you need to have every answer to do this, and I'm telling you, you do not. All you need to do is get yourself into the right mindset, get over, your irrational fears of picking up the phone and what if I don't know what to say, or I need to know what to say. Forget all that stuff. Identify your market, identify your subset, pull a list or get a list driving for dollars, and just start doing the activity. I guarantee you, Boydie, you will find an opportunity in 30 days if you are relentless about activity. And don't worry about what your business looks like or what system you're using or what this opportunity may be, or I don't know what to say. Just pick up the phone and have the very simple conversation. My name is Boydie. I am an investor in the area. I notice you own this property on 123 Main Street. Is this a property you would consider selling? Yes, no. Yes. Cool, great. Hey, Mike, I have an opportunity. Or yes. Okay, let me ask you a couple more questions and see if we're a good fit for this. What's going on with the property? What's your timeline? What's the condition of the property? What do you need to get out of this property? It's as simple as that. And if you're able to do that with consistency, you will start turning up opportunities and you will be successful if you're persistent and you're consistent. Okay, I only have a few slides left. So I'm going to run through this quickly because I actually have another call at 12. I didn't think I was going to be 2 hours, but thank you guys for bearing with me. How can we work together? So bird dogging basically is what we're talking about. Pay per lead. I'll pay you 10% of the assignment fee if you bring me a lead and I close the deal. You could do that all day for all I care. If all you wanted to do is just identify opportunities, call people, find a motivated seller, figure out their motivation, their timeline, their condition, their price, send me that, and I pick up the conversation and close the lead, I'll pay you 10% on that all day. I think a lot of us are here to learn. So we do the same thing. I'll still pay you the 10% for the lead. You bring it to me. You can tag along with me on appointments. You can jump on the call with me and the seller. You can hear how I ask questions, how I analyze, be involved, and maybe I can kind of ask you to do a few things, sort of more of like a mentoring through that transaction. Great. We could JV on deals. You start getting more comfortable. Maybe you can do most of the acquisition phase. I can help you with the contract or help you find a buyer, and we JV. These deals are always going to be different. Structure is always going to be different. But we'll go deal by deal depending on what the opportunity presents. And then we're also, as I mentioned in the beginning, looking to bring some people onto our team. So what I'm looking for is people that want to get out there and do the activity, that want to hustle, that want to grow, that want to prove that they can do it. And if they're interested in joining our team and learning from the inside, there'll be some opportunity there as well. Does anybody have any questions real quick? I got to jump, but we can circle back, and I'll circle back with you guys too after this. Hopefully you got some value out of that. I know we covered a lot. Hopefully you guys got some good talking points.